everyone. So today's video is going to be a demonstration of how we make a round challah that looks like this one. We usually make round challahs on Rosh Hashana, and we're going to begin. Okay, so the first step is we need to prepare the yeast. I like to use Fleischmann's Rapid Rise, but you can use any one you want. I cut it open. You pour it into 2 cups of warm water. Make sure it's warm because it really works better that way. So I put both packets in the water, and then in order to activate the yeast, you need sugar. So I'm going to use 2 teaspoons of sugar. 1, 2. I like to mix it. And then you just set it aside, and you'll see it in a couple of minutes. You'll see how it activates. Okay. While that's doing what it's supposed to be doing, we're going to prepare the dough. First thing we need is flour. Again, I'll show you what I use. I like King Arthur. I find that the bread works best that way. I've also used the Whole Foods brand and some other ones, and most of them are good. 7 cups of flour. This is a 1 cup serving, so I'm going to do this 7 times. And put it in the bowl. And 7. Then we put a 1/2 cup sugar, any sugar is fine. Cup. We put 1/2 cup of oil. Any kind of vegetable oil works. Again, same 1/2 cup. It's better to put the sugar first before you use the cup for the oil, because otherwise the cup is oily. And 2 eggs. I check to make sure that the eggs are clean and no blood spots. Smells great. Right in there. That one looks great. That one in there. And do not forget the salt. Very easy to forget the salt. 2.5 tablespoons of salt. Let me just make sure that's correct. I'm going to go, give me 1 moment. No, 1.5 tablespoons of salt. Okay, 1.5. You know, if you add a little more or a little less, nothing's going to happen. And that's all you need for the dough. And now we're going to wait for the yeast. So as you can see, the yeast is starting to bubble. Looking good. Every once in a while, I would say maybe 1 in 20 times that I prepare challah, the yeast is just a dud. Nothing happens. It looks like water. So if it doesn't look like it's foaming and it has bubbles, the bread will not rise. And what I've done is just throw it out and start new. But it should not be a problem. Okay. So there you have it. Last thing we're doing is we're putting this yeast preparation into the rest of the ingredients. Just pour it in. like that. Now, if you want to, you can knead it by hand, but I am not going to do that. There's really no need to do that. We have a mixer here, and I let the mixer do the work for me. So, put it in the mixer. We need the hook. And I'm going to say 3 to 5 minutes. So this is what it looks like at the beginning. While you're doing that, I like to put everything away. And while you're doing that, just check one more time and make sure that you put all the ingredients in there. So I would go over your list, make sure again you have everything. I'm going to do right now. So we have yeast, water, and sugar, that was done. And the sugar, oil, egg, flour, and salt. Okay. We're in business. So we're going to shut this off. I'm going to shut off the video for a moment while we wait for this. So some of you might not want to use the machine. Some of you might not have one at this moment. So there's a way to knead the dough by hand. I remember my grandmother doing it, so I'll tell you from memory, but I would suggest that you can find a tutorial on the internet. But essentially what you do is you roll the dough into some form of a almost circle, and you take your the palm of your hand and you push it into the dough, and then you pull the dough onto itself, and you continue to push into the dough, turn the dough onto itself. I would say 3 to 4 times, and then you shift it clockwise and do that again, and you just keep on doing it until it looks something like this. So you can see now. I don't know if you can really see the bottom over there, but it always reminds me a little bit of a tornado. The texture looks perfect. So it's been mixing for about 4 minutes. I'm gonna let it mix a couple more, about 20 more seconds, and I'll show you what the texture looks like. And really, this is an ideal texture. Stop it. See, it almost lifts, the whole thing lifts. And the other thing I forgot to mention, which really doesn't need mentioning, don't forget, wash your hands, because you're going to be touching the dough a lot. Which I'm going to do right now. And just want to show you the texture first. So you see, it's kind of like a Play-Doh, I would say. You kind of can pull it like that. If that's not the texture, and as you're mixing it, you feel that it's really dry and the machine is like working too hard, just have like a cup of warm water next to you and pour a drop and see how it goes. And if it's still very dry, another drop, but don't pour too much water into it. You're not going to need that much water. So you see how it's all sticking into the hook? This is a great texture. Now, next thing I'm going to do is take some oil, spray a bowl. Then I'm going to take the dough. I mean, you can just put it in. I like to form it into some, make it a little bit smoother, because it really looks nice when it rises and it's nice and smooth. All right. Here you go. This is your dough. You want to make sure you put the dough in there, but make sure that you envelop it with some of the oil. So what I normally do is I just go like this, like that. I want all the dough to have some oil. And then, this is what it looks like. Then, take some plastic. Some people skip the plastic step. I like it. I think it rises better, and also doesn't get the towels all doughy when you're done. So, some plastic. Nice and tight. And then go to your kitchen towel drawer and some kitchen towels on it. This is the point where you do something else now for about an hour and a half to 2 hours. You should leave it in a warm, dry place in the kitchen. I usually put it, if I'm not using the stove, I usually put it near the stove. That's what I'm gonna do right now. And then I'll see you in 2 hours. Okay, so we are about an hour into it, and I thought after I have my sip of wine that we will take a peek. Ready? Ready, ready? And looks beautiful. It's definitely rising. Some people might decide to stop now. I'm gonna wait another at least half an hour and take a look at it again. Usually what happens is I see the towels rising a little bit, and to me that's when I know that that it's ready. Okay, see you in half an hour. Okay, so we're just about 2 hours into this, and as you can see, the telltale sort of like pregnant belly is visible. And ready for this? Now look at that. This dough is ready to be worked. Okay, so I'm gonna remove the plastic. Actually perfect. One thing that I like to use is a food scale. With this one, it's not as important because you're not braiding the challah, but you might want to use it anyway. Let's see how it goes. Okay, so once you start moving the dough around, it flattens, and that's okay. Don't worry about that. This dough is actually perfect. So you remove it from here. You might want to put a little bit of flour on the surface. Now, the amount of flour that you're going to need on the surface, it really depends on how sticky the dough is. And that's just going to come with experience. You know, as you make your challahs, you will see that you're going to learn what the exact texture is. Don't use too much of it though, in the beginning. So here's our dough. And remember, what we need to do now is we need to make a whole bunch of roses so that we can combine them into a circle, or it looks more like a wreath. And that's just the design that I use. You can do it any way you want to. It's your challah and your creation, but I'm gonna make that one just so that you can see sort of how to make the roses. So now I take a knife, just gonna cut it in half, more or less, and I'm gonna weigh it just to see that it's actually half. But again, in this one, it doesn't really matter. So this is 1 pound, 13 ounces. This is 1 pound, 11 ounces. So let's put it here. Okay, now they're both around 1 pound, 12 ounces. Okay, now is the fun part. So you see how I'm just playing around with the dough? Don't worry about it. You can play around with the dough. Nothing's going to happen to it. It's not as delicate as you think. What we're going to do now is roll the dough. Now you see as I'm rolling it, it's getting really sticky. So I'm going to try a little bit more. And if it gets too difficult, what I'm going to do is add a little bit of flour. But the goal now is to get this dough. Then what I'm going to work with fours because there's a lot of dough and we want to make it thin. See, this is way too thick. So our goal right now is to make thin circles of dough. What I'm going to do is work with 1/4 of the dough and show you how to do it. And then you just have to repeat it a lot of times. So you see, this is still really thick. You want it to be very thin. Start from the center and roll. And just roll out in all directions. Don't worry about the shape of the dough. It doesn't have to be a perfect circle, not for this challah. You just have to, the goal is just to get it to be pretty thin so that you can create a whole bunch of circles. Then I'm going to show you how to make the roses. So you can see it so far. I don't know how much this is. 1/4 inch? What do you think? Let's see. This is about 1/4 inch. But it needs to be thinner. Adding a little bit more flour to make it easier to roll. Aren't you glad you didn't also knead the bread? You'd be exhausted by now. It's like a full workout. Okay. All right, I think this is probably good enough. A little bit more. All right. Now, the question that you are going to ask yourself is, how big do you want your roses to be? So the first time I made this challah, I played around with the sizes of the circles. I can't really measure the circumference, so just to give you an example, the diameter of this glass is 3 inches. This Moroccan tea glass is 2.5 inches, and then this espresso glass is 2 inches. So I ended up preferring this one, which is 2.5 inches, because what ends up happening is after you make the circles, you're still going to roll it even more, so they're going to get big. But again, if you like bigger roses, you can use a bigger one. You can also have different shape, different size roses on the same challah. So you'll have a challah that has big, little, big, different sizes, and that's perfectly okay as well. Let your creative juices flow. So, very simple. Again, I remember this from my grandmother when she would make cookies. Take the cup. You don't need any fancy cookie cutters. You just take a cup and you go like this until it separates. And you use up, try to get as many circles as you can out of the dough that you rolled. So, if you have kids, they love doing this. It's like Play-Doh for them. And they can, learn how to bake and really keep you company and enjoy themselves as well. Okay. So you have the idea. Now, once you're done with the circles, that can happen, it's okay. Once you're done with your circles, you're gonna have a lot of dough left, and I'll show you in a moment. Okay. get one more over here. So now you have, don't worry if the circles aren't perfect circles, it really does not matter. So you have all this dough left, you're not gonna get rid of it. What you're gonna do is, you're gonna recycle it. Put it right back here with all the rest of your dough. Now, the really exciting part, how do you make the rows? So, what you do is, I use 6 circles. I read on the internet somewhere, somebody used 4 circles, but I think it looks a lot nicer with 6 circles. So, here's your circle. Roll it, make it thinner. Don't be afraid. If it's not a circle, it's okay. Do the best you can to make it as close to a circle as possible, but it's okay if it's not. You can play around with it. You can use your hands if you want to, like that. There's 1, 2, did I tell you in the beginning of the video that this was going to be a lot of work? 2, 3, 4, 'You can make them even thinner than this. I'm looking at them. I want to make them a little thinner. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And 6. Okay. All right, so you have your 6 sort of circles. And now we're going to make the flower. Okay, take 1, take the other one, put it sort of like halfway over the first one. For those of you that like math, it's sort of like a Venn diagram, right there. And then you do that with all 6 of them. 3, and you can see how they're not all the same shape. Do not worry about that. I mean, yeah, 4. Stretch them out a little bit again. 5, 6. And now, so you have your 6 circles. You go to the bottom, not the last one, the first one that you put down, and you start rolling it like you're rolling, you know, whatever it is that you roll, right? So you just roll it tightly, like that. Roll, roll, roll. And then just keep pressing it as you're rolling. See how I put my fingers at the bottom because I want to catch it all so that it rolls nicely. Put a little bit of pressure. Okay, now it's rolled, and I'd like to do an extra one so that it stays. Okay, now you take your knife, cut it right in half, right over there. And voila. Gotta open them a little bit. That's your rose. You can make them higher, lower. Some people like to make them thinner because they look prettier. I found that when you make them thinner, it cooks unevenly because the top will burn before the bottom is really cooked. So I haven't found the perfect solution, but here are your 2 very pretty roses. Now you have to continue doing that with all of this dough. So I'm gonna leave you. I'm gonna do mine as well. And when I come back, we're gonna have all of the dough in the shape of roses. Maybe I'll do one more, just so that you can see it one more time. It's starting to get a little sticky. Just go like that. 1. I'm gonna try to make it even a little thinner. Because remember, once we're done with all of this, you're going to let it rise and you're going to shape it into a challah, and then you're going to let it rise one more time. But this time it's not going to be 2 hours. It'll be less than an hour. Okay, 2. Oops. If you rip it, no problem. Just go like that. And you could put it in the back. Nobody will know. I won't tell. Promise. 2. 3. 4. 5. You can use more than 6. You can use 7, 8. Play around with it. Have fun with it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. And one more time. So we have our 6 shapes, somewhat circles. And here we go. Ready? Roll from the bottom. Just keep rolling. Keep rolling. There you go. I wish my knife was a little bit sharper. I'm going to sharpen it for the next one. And there are your roses. Okay, so I'm going to continue, and I'll see you in a little while. Have fun. Okay.
Go.
Okay, so I was working hard. I'm sure you were also. And here are all my roses. I put it on a parchment paper, and I started it with a bowl in the middle that had a smaller circumference, but I realized that the challah was too small, so I created a larger challah to fit the size of this pan, and I put a bigger bowl in the middle. And the way I situated them is, you don't want them to be too tight. See how there's some gaps? The reason for that is because we're going to let it rise one more time. Yeah, you don't want the gaps to be too big. I'm not really sure how this is going to come out, but it looks like it's going to be pretty nice. So here's your beautiful almost challah. We're going to do the same thing that we did before. You can use the same plastic that you used before. And the other thing, before I tell you that, I just wanted to let you know that I didn't use all the dough. So in a little while I'll show you, you can do anything else, anything you want with that dough. You can make more roses. If you have a bigger oven and a bigger tray, you can make another round. Or you can just make another challah. So you put the plastic on it. See, it's not even covering it completely, but that's okay. And then all the towels that I used before, I'm going to put them over it again. And this time, I'm going to let it rise for about a half an hour. So here's the before. Okay, let's see what it looks like in a half hour. See you soon. So the dough is almost ready, but as you see, I have some leftover dough here. So because we're making a round challah for Rosh Hashana, I'm going to show you how to make 2 more Rosh Hashana challahs, just tiny little rolls that are fun, and they're both pomegranate shapes. So the first one, I took about, 3.5 ounces, 4 ounces of dough. You can really make it any size you want. And I created a circle, and now I'm going to make a long, sort of like, I don't know what you call it, like this. You just keep doing this until it gets long. And it's kind of warm out today, so I'm going to roll it instead, because I don't want the dough to get too warm. dough. See, the dough's giving me a little bit of a hard time, so put it in some more flour. There you go. All right, now you're gonna take a knife and you're gonna cut this in half, almost the entire way. You're just gonna leave a little bit, let's see, which direction? Okay, we're gonna do it like this. So you're cutting it halfway through, but you're leaving a little bit that's not cut over here. And you separate the pieces. See, it's like kind of like this. Then do it this way so it's easier for you to see. Nice and long, nice and long. Then you're gonna roll it. And you're gonna open it up in half. And there's your little pomegranate. That's one. Now, another pomegranate. Let's see how much this is. This is, oops, start over. 5/4, that's too much. I'm gonna make the size of a roll, in my mind, should be about 3.5 ounces. So this one, you just make a circle, and the trick to making a circle is you take the dough and you sort of try to make the top smooth over here, and the way to do that is you keep just bringing the dough in underneath. Just do that, and you keep doing that. See how you just keep doing that. Then eventually form it into a circle. There you go. So this doesn't look like a pomegranate yet. It's just a circle, right? But take another piece of dough, much smaller, form another circle, and this one's small enough where you can just go like this. And now you have a nice little circle here. Take a scissor, make an incision there, so it opens up a little bit. You make another incision right there, and another one right there. There you go. Get it right on top of it. And I think, there you go. The best way to do it is, or I think that the addition to it would be to add a little bit of black sesame seeds right in the middle. So we're gonna let these rise as well while the other ones are cooking. See you soon. All right. Before we continue, make sure you preheat your oven, 425. So, let's see, the moment we've been waiting for after all this hard work. Let's see how our challah is coming out. Woo! Look how pretty that is. So I'm going to remove this. We don't need this anymore. And now I'm going to take another egg, crack the egg, and scramble it. Basically, we want to create this glaze on the challah. You can add, I've added some coconut milk to it just to give it a little bit of a, sort of like a nice flavor, but I'm not going to do that this time. You can be creative, do whatever you want. And so you want this texture, basically like you're making scrambled eggs. Some people add water to it, milk. I just keep it simple. And now you want to make sure you get all the, sides as well. So I like to start with the sides so I don't forget. And again, don't worry if it's not exact, that's totally fine. It's going to still look beautiful. Okay, do the inside as well. And then you can work on one rose at a time. On different challahs, I like to add sesame seeds or, other seeds, pumpkin seeds. But I think this one is so pretty, I like to just leave it as it is. You should make sure your oven is at 425 before you put the challah in there. And what you're going to do is you'll put it in the oven, time it for, I would say, about 15 minutes. Check to see that it's browned, and then reduce the temperature to 350. And when it's 350, you can leave it there for, again, another 15 to 20 minutes. You'll have to check, I like to check frequently. They usually say not to open the oven when you're baking. I haven't found it to be a problem. I mean, you don't want to open the oven every 2 minutes, but you can open the oven and check 10, 12, 15 minutes later, just to make sure everything's okay. So you want to try to get as many of the crevices as possible, because sometimes when you're baking, and you'll see this after, for example, after 10 minutes, you can open it to see. Sometimes when you're baking, things open up, and you might want to, at that time, again, put some egg on the sort of like the parts that are still white. Okay, that is it. This challah is going in the oven. Okay, see you when it's done. Don't forget to change it to 350 after about 15 minutes. Here we go. And here is our beautiful challah. You might have to play around with the shape a little bit. It's pretty malleable at this stage because it's so warm. Okay, so here we have our beautiful challah. Happy and healthy New Year to everybody, and enjoy your challah. Bye.